Welcome to another Spaz Kangaroo tutorial. Today I'm going to be teaching you a little bit about the principles of animation, and this will be useful later on in our Minecraft animation tutorial because we'll be able to use that rig and make the animations look decent. So anyway, I'm not the best animator in the world, and I'm still kind of a beginner at this entire animation thing, but I've learned a couple things that I thought I'd share with you that will make your animation stuff a little bit easier. So I've got a few examples up here to demonstrate some of the principles of animation created by Walt Disney, and I'm not going to show all of them because some of them are kind of outdated at this point because they used to be done with hand-drawn animation, and some of them are related more to composition than they are to the actual technique of animation itself. So let's get started with squash and stretch. Many people have heard of this one, and it's fairly prominent in cartoons. So we'll just watch this animation here, and I'll explain what I'm doing here. So the ball on the right does not have squash and stretch, and the other one has a kind of exaggerated squash and stretch. But you'll be able to see, you're able to see that this like almost gooiness of the bounce makes the motion more apparent and makes it more interesting to watch. So all I've done here is there's just two balls. They both have a single bone. This bone rotates with the ball to stretch in the direction of the motion. So you'll notice as it increases in speed, it stretches. As it hits the ground, it squashes and then stretches back out, and once it reaches the apex of its jump or bounce, it returns to normal because there's very little motion and it won't stretch as much. And then once again it stretches out. So next up we have anticipation. And anticipation is pretty important as well because it helps direct the viewer's attention, and once again it makes it much more interesting to watch. So I've got two cubes here. I'm going to hide the second one for a minute. So this one is just going to gradually speed up and then stop, just like that. And that's a fairly boring motion, but it's there. So then we're going to have a much more interesting motion with some anticipation. So it kind of goes back, like for example, if you were cocking a punch or something, and it's got a little bit of a twist too, just to give it a little bit of an extra flair to the motion. So once again, fairly simple. It's actually pretty easy to animate this, and I'll also be showing you some techniques with Blender's animation tools in a minute. Now finally, I've thrown together a bunch in here. We have secondary action, follow through, overlapping action, and slow in and slow out. So the second one is the interesting one, so we're going to hide that one for now. We're going to look solely at the boring one and less realistic. So secondary action is when you have motion that isn't tied to the base of the main object. So for example, like the hair of a person when they're walking, or their coat, if it's long, it would like flip back in the wind, or with a horse, its mane and its tail. So the secondary action will be any kind of secondary motion that follows along with the main motion, but kind of has its own motion as well. Oh, or when you're walking, when you swing your arms, like if you want just pure walking, you could just move the legs of a person. But that would look very boring, and most people swing their arms when they walk, and it's more natural that way. Secondly, we have follow through and overlapping action. So follow through means instead of just coming to a complete stop immediately, you follow through and kind of swing back for a second. So like if a baseball player hits a ball, they don't just stop as soon as the bat's connected with the ball. When they hit the ball, they'll follow through with the hit, and it will continue moving even after the ball has stopped, even after the ball has changed its direction. And overlapping action is kind of like is just secondary action basically. Slow in and slow out means motion is not linear. It's not mechanical. Like if you think of a robot, you think of them moving in very very exact motions. They don't speed up and then slow down at the end, as you'll see right here in a minute. So I basically have our previous example, but this time he doesn't move back, and he's got this object has very linear motion. As soon as he reaches the end, he just stops. It doesn't slow in, slow out, overlap, follow through, have any kind of secondary motion with this piece on top. So our second object in the scene is right here, and I will hide our boring one now. And now we have a much more interesting motion. So immediately you'll notice that we have this secondary motion of this flap on top, which could be hair, I guess, or something. And as he speeds up, you'll notice it shifts forwards a little bit, and then as he goes back for the forwards, his hair flips forward a little bit, and then as soon as he reaches the end, it stops and kind of bounces. And next we have this the same motion that we had in the last one, which we had slow in and slow out. So we speed up and then slow down. We speed up and then slow down, and then we have follow through. So we go through with our motion and then he kind of stops there. So he goes past the point that he wants to go to and then stops. So I mean, this takes the exact same amount of time, but this second motion is much more interesting to watch than this first motion is. Right, we're gonna just have a walk cycle where he walks here into the building because that's easier. Alright. So we have our Minecraft character up here, and we're going to do a walk cycle. So I can show you how to do some basic animation. For now, first things first, I'm just gonna try to make it view in a nicer way because I don't really want to view these bones like that. I prefer them looking like boxes. I think it's a little bit easier to view. B-bone. There we are. Okay, and I'm just gonna hide the majority of the scene since it's just getting in our way. Actually, let me jump over to animation first. So I'm in the animation view, so we have access to our dope sheet and graph editor. You'll see what these do in a minute. For now, you can just shift up the graph editor because we'll want to see more what's in there. Don't close the dope sheet though, because we'll be using that in a minute. Alright, so I'm just gonna make this screen bigger and make this timeline a little bit smaller and push this side in. Alright, so first we're going to hide a lot of this crap in the background because we don't need to see it, and it's just going to take up resources and slow things down and get in our view. So we just hide that. Alright, so now we're down to Steve right here. Okay, so first what we're going to do is make a pose for a walk animation. So we're going to just take that and that, and we're not going to do any kind of interpolation at the start. We're just doing single poses. So actually I want to make him go a little bit lower to the ground and then stretch his legs out a little bit more. Okay, that's better. And whoops. We'll just pose the hands, something like that. And this will be a secondary motion in a minute. So what we're going to do is this will actually be offset with the walking. The hands will move in pace with the walking, but they'll like follow through a little bit more. And then let's just make you know what, we'll worry about that in a minute. Okay, so that's good right there. And then what we're going to do is instead of remaking this pose but mirrored, we're going to simply insert the location for our first frame, so insert location rotation. Then we're going to click record because this makes animation a little bit easier. What it'll do is every time you move a bone, it'll insert the new location for that frame. Then we're going to just move forwards to frame 10. We're going to copy this pose by clicking this little clipboard button, and then we can either paste it or paste the mirrored version. We're going to paste mirrored, which completely flips our current pose. And then you might have to do a little bit tweaking because the rig might not play completely nice with it, but it should work in most cases. Alright, so then since we have our auto keyframe insertion on, it should have, oh wait, that didn't work. Insert location rotation. Okay, wait, yeah, that did. Alright, so it automatically inserted our keyframes. So let's just put our endpoint here, hit hover in the timeline and hit E, and that'll set the length of our animation to that, and then we'll get this, which looks kind of like crap at the moment, but we'll make it better. So we have to have two, the legs have to come back to the original initial position to loop correctly. So we're actually going to go up to frame 20 and then just copy this pose and then paste it right there. So it'll flip it back. So you really have to, that's one entire step there. So now we have this, which looks a little bit better, but it's still kind of odd and weird and looks kind of like a moonwalk actually at the moment. But you can see our timing is correct, like the motions actually look okay. It does look a little bit stiff at the moment, but don't worry about that, we'll clean that up. So, view right, and one of the most important things that we need to do is fix the leg motion that moves forwards, because when you walk, you keep one foot on the ground and one foot lifts. So the foot that's going to lift is going to be the one that's coming forwards, because you don't want your foot to drag on the ground. So it's this foot right here. So we're just going to pick it up and stretch it out a little bit more. So now it's more like that. So now when we play it, he steps forwards, but the other leg doesn't. So what we're going to have to do is just copy this and then paste it mirrored. And we have this. So now, looks much better. From the legs down at least. So now, we're going to have some motion. Oh, one thing I didn't mention in the previous section of this video is weight. And this is the most important thing in my mind you have to keep in mind with character animation. When you're doing character animation, make sure you always imagine where the center of balance is going to be. So in this case, center of balance is right about here. It's about the hip bones. So you want this center of balance to always be the kind of origin of your motion. Like you want this from a standing position, it's always like around the hips and torso area. So this, the entire torso is going to be what decides like the weight distribution of the pose. Which sounds a little bit confusing, but we'll cover that. I'll show you what I mean right now. So these hips, when you step forwards, you actually lift your entire body up. So when you're stepping, you're actually moving up slightly. Right? So we're just going to move that along with the hands up. And now we have this. And then we're going to once again copy this pose and paste it. We can paste it mirrored, doesn't really matter because it's just the location. So now we get this, which looks a lot better. So now you can see this is where the weight is, and as it moves with the motion of the legs, it looks a lot more natural. So when you see a badly done animation, you'll notice that the weight, pay attention to where the weight is, and you'll notice that the weight is almost always off. They'll be like floating along, well, instead of actually shifting with gravity. So pay attention to where the gravity, where the motion, the weight how the weight should affect the motion that you're trying to create. Alright, so right now it's not that bad actually, and we have Bezier animations, so we have a little bit of smooth in, smooth out, but I think we can push this a little bit more. Let's have another secondary motion of the head bobbing with the rest of the body. So as we move up, as we reach our up point, we'll just have him shift his head forwards a little bit. Doesn't have to be much. Subtlety is actually can be better than being subtle about emotion. Actually makes it look better in many cases. Not all, but in many cases. You don't want to exaggerate every emotion. You do want to exaggerate some, but not all of them. So now we have this little bob of the head, which gives which makes the head look a little bit less stiff. So let's see, what else can we do? Let's pop open our curves here and actually start looking at them a little bit more closely. Alright. So you see we have our smooth in, smooth out with this curve, but we can actually adjust the shape of this curve if we want to. So let's see. I don't really want to at the moment because I think we actually got a pretty good curve going on, but maybe what we can do is we can make this a sharp curve when he steps off the ground. See how that looks. Not bad. Not incredible. I think it's a little bit too sharp. So we're gonna just we do want to tighten this up a little bit because he's actually shifting weight onto this foot when he steps down. So it will be coming down a little bit faster. And then okay. Boom. Alright. Wait, is that the Z location? Oh wait, is our Z screwed up? I'm not sure. What's local Z? Oh no, Z location is actually our global Y axis, so we don't really care about that one. We care about which one is Z. Alright, Y. This is the one that we actually care about because this is the motion that's coming down, you see, because the yellow arrow, when we're viewing the local view, the yellow arrow is pointing down. So we're going to go back to global, and we're going to tighten this one up a little bit because he starts putting weight on this, so it'll speed up. So now you see he kind of stomps down that right foot. And when does he pull it back? Boom. Okay. Maybe we can tighten up this one too. I think that looks a little bit better. I don't know. Depends on how you want the walk to look. This looks a little bit more like a strut, I guess. Okay. So now we've got sharper motion when the leg comes down. The hands are actually fairly important. I'm going to have them swing back one frame more. So instead of completely lining up with the legs, they're going to be a little bit off center with that. So instead of adding a new keyframe, which you could do, but it ends up, whenever you can avoid adding a keyframe, avoid adding it because it will make your life a lot easier when you're trying to play around with curves later on. So instead of having a bunch of little dots to deal with here, we're going to only have a few keyframes which we can then shape. So you can even simplify your keyframes. I forget how to do that. Which one is it? Select. Oh, clean keyframes. That's it. Oh. So here if we click O, it'll get rid of all the unnecessary ones that we don't need. So use that if you end up having too many, and it'll make your life a lot easier. Alright, so we want this motion, this swinging motion of the hands, to be off frame by like like out of beat with the legs by like a frame or two. So I'm just gonna do one frame for now. Well, actually, maybe that's a little bit too subtle. We'll go 2. Right? And then wait a minute. That didn't work. Oh wait, yes it did. Okay, and then let's see. Do we have to do it with this? I think we have to offset this by 1 frame, and then the next one by 1 frame. No, we don't. Never mind. I think it's just that this keyframe right here, right? And then we're gonna do it with the other side as well. Actually, you know what? I'll just exaggerate over the top, just so it's apparent what I'm doing here. Okay, that's a little bit too much and it looks funky, but we'll make it more subtle in a minute. Okay, so now the legs are out, the hands are out of motion with the legs, but we're gonna make that a little bit more subtle now. Going right here, and we're gonna do it with this one as well. So this is where the legs actually switch, and then the arms don't start moving back until this frame. So it just delays them a little bit. Alright. Wait, I didn't do enough with this one, I don't think. Where is this? No? Okay, maybe we'll just make this motion a little bit more subtle then. Okay, so just move your curve up a little bit. Yep, that's pretty good. And let's see, what else should we do? I think that's actually pretty good. It looks okay. You can always continue tweaking and adding more motion and adding more subtleties. But for now, since we're just trying to show the overall workflow, I think that's pretty good. So lastly, we're going to actually animate that motion forwards. So he's going to be walking into this doorway here. So we're going to animate the root bone. You can also have it follow a path. I've always had issues with that though, so we're just going to animate the root bone. The only thing with this is you have to make sure to stay at a constant speed. So what I always do is I always have my begin motion of the walk cycle and my very end point, and then I'll animate any in-betweens afterwards. So we want him to walk all the way from there into there, and I think that should take about 50 frames. I don't know. This is a complete guess. Right? So we're just going to walk in there and then see how that looks. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, of course not. This is where we actually get into making our animations a little bit easier to work with. What we're going to do is, there are a few ways you could do this. One, you could just duplicate these curves multiple times, which is kind of a pain in the butt. Or we can use our dope sheet, which is much simpler, because then we're not worrying about all these shapes here. We just can duplicate them where we want. You can even make walk cycles and then just make like a single action which you can drop in, which you might want to do, but it's a lot more difficult to customize then, and we don't have animation layers in Blender, so it doesn't really make much sense. So anyway, what we're going to do is select the first half. Actually, no, we're going to select everything past. We're going to select everything but the first frame, because this first frame repeats right here. And then we're just going to duplicate it forwards. And then we're going to duplicate it forwards. And you guessed it, we're going to duplicate it forwards once again. Whoops, that needs to go out a couple more frames. Right there. Alright, so I think that should take only, how many steps do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5-ish. That looks like it's good. Okay. And we're going to close this because it's slowing things down now. Alright. And we're going to just take our, which one is it? Our root bone. Where's our root bone? Ah, crap, I didn't name it right. Root bone. I am root bone. No, okay. We're just going to delete all those frames for the root bone because we don't care at the moment. So now we just have, oops, let's go all the way to the end. It took 80 frames. We can always work with that. And we have our looping walk cycle, which is why you don't have to animate the entire thing over and over again. You just take it and then duplicate the animation that you've already done. All right, let's animate our root bone here. So we're going to insert the root location, and then we're going to go forwards to, say, here-ish, and then move it inside the doorway and insert. Alright, so this actually lined up pretty well. The reason it looks funny is because it's slowing in and out because we're using a Bezier curve for our walk cycle, and I'm just going to delete these frames because they're useless. Right, so we're going to end right here. Oops, there. Okay, so he's slowing in and out because of the Bezier curve, but we want this to be a linear curve. So we're going to pop open our curves editor again. Where is that? Okay, graph editor. Sorry, they changed the name in the newer version of Blender. I'm used to 2.49, which came out a billion years ago. But even so, I always think of it as the curve editor, even though it's the graph editor now. Let's see. So this is Bezier, so as you can see it slows in and it slows out. What we want is linear, so just hit T and we can choose the interpolation type. So we have constant, linear, Bezier, and then these new ones were added, which are different amounts of Bezier here, and then dynamic effects, which are like elastic and bounce and stuff, which just make your life a little bit simpler if you're doing that type of animation. So these ones you do not normally want, no, you never want to apply to an entire object, an entire animation, I don't think. But linear and Bezier, constant, you might want to, but linear and Bezier are the two most common that you'll use. So now you can see these are just straight lines, and our animation is just flat. It's very same speed, which is fine in this case because we have enough Bezier motions inside that it doesn't look mechanical. So if we want here, we can actually just shift our animation to be the correct speed so it doesn't look like he's sliding on the floor. This is just an art of knowing what looks good. There's really no trick to this. That's a little bit too slow. A little bit faster. That looks okay. And maybe a little bit faster. No, that's good. That looks good. Alright, so now if we want any kind of motion, actually that's a fairly straight line, but we can actually add a little bit of a curve to the, which one, Y location, X location. So he like goes around this gap here. So we're gonna insert a keyframe on this channel. I'm gonna hit T, so we can change just the type for that one curve to Bezier. So it's a smoother motion. Nope. Freaking local axes are screwing it up again. Which one is local? I forget to do this every time and it screws me up. Alright, so it's the Z local that we're using for this axis in that direction. So we'll just select Z, insert, only select a channel, T, and then we're going to make it Bezier. So now we can smooth this motion out. So how about, I'm just going to push it closer to here, and he'll go around that gap a little bit smoother now. Alright, and finally he kind of looks like he's sliding sideways because he's not actually rotating towards that, so we'll add a little bit of rotation along the x-axis, local x-axis, not the global x-axis. Yeah, you'll deal a lot with these local versus global coordinates when you're doing animation. I haven't been explaining that really much in this video. Let me know if you want me to explain that in the next one, though, when we do more complex animation. But I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Oh wait, that's wrong. That's scale. We want X rotation. Alright, so we're going to insert a channel, and we'll just have it rotate with our where is it? Boom. So he rotates out, and then he rotates back in here, and then he rotates a little bit more. Okay, and there we go. We have a little bit of a smoother curve now. So I'm not going to clean this up. This could use a little bit more work, but we actually have a basic walk cycle that looks okay here, which is pretty cool. So we're going to expand on these concepts a little bit in the next Minecraft tutorial. This is just going to be a general animation thing that's not really in that series, but it is useful to it. So I should probably put that at the beginning of the video. Anyway, these are some concepts for animation. Hopefully that'll help you get started. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, favorite, subscribe for more videos. I'm going to be doing some more programming tutorials as well. I'm also going to have some ideas for Blender programming in Python. So yeah, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss those. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you all later.